Hey, thanks for joining us. Today on the show, we're talking about axles. Part 2 in our two-part series, we're talking about how you can move beyond the stock axle. All that, plus a couple questions, maybe a funny story or two, and more today on the show. Thanks for being here. Let's get into it. Let's talk about axles. Welcome everyone. Thanks again for joining us. We're here, part 2 of our two-part series, I guess you will, on axles and axle swaps and axle upgrades. Of course, as always, joined by my two co-hosts. We have Ryan from TMR Customs, and nope, we've got Ryan from Combat Off-Road and Tim from TMR Customs. How's it going, guys?
Awesome.
It's a little early, although it's not really. No excuse. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so what's going on? You're right, that's right. That's right, it's 6 a.m. here, you know?
Yeah.
What's going on? How's things?
Good.
Yeah, nice.
Excited to talk about some axle stuff.
All right, all about the axles. Ryan, buddy, you got some news. Are we going to share it? Or?
Oh, yeah, sure. I finally, I was actually really short. It was like 40 days. I picked up that Gladiator and we built it, like right from the factory. So they're pumping those things out. So you want to switch now, you can.
I know, right? You know, I keep thinking, so my son, he thought I was getting a Gladiator. My 5-year-old, he kept saying, like, when you get the JL, and then we were on the Jeep website just messing around, building stuff. And man, was he upset when he realized that the JL wasn't the Gladiator. I'm like, man, I totally should have just got the Gladiator at this point. I mean, I'd have it by now. We'd be driving around. They're pretty sick. Yours looks awesome. Tim, yours looks awesome. But yeah, no, the JL is on a 6-month timeline, I guess, you know, and there's nothing much I can do. But Tim, how's your Gladiator?
Did you get it back?
Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, I got 2-inch AEV lift in it, 37-inch BFGs on methods. We got like our wrap and decals and TMR livery on it. So it looks sharp. It drives nice. I guess I've put obviously a week worth of driving around town now, and then I've done about 3 to 4 hours worth of highway driving. So yeah, the thing works awesome. The ride quality is still great. Yeah, super happy with it. It's one I've had a couple people call me since I did it, and they're like, what's your opinion on this or that? They're like, I go on the internet and I see mixed reviews on all kinds of shit, and they're like, I don't know who to believe. So like, what's like your honest opinion? Because I'm like, I don't fuck around. If I don't like something, I'll tell you I don't like it. But yeah, no, the mods I've made to that perform awesome. Super happy with how it's played out.
That's awesome. Right on. And you have the 6-cylinder, right? The 6-cylinder automatic, yes?
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, which one did you end up going with?
Yeah, we did the 6-cylinder auto. Christina wanted the heated wheel and remote start and all that because the other JL is manual, so you couldn't get that.
Right. Yeah, and being that it gets a little chilly around here. It's been known to get cold.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I like it too. Right, you just look out the window and just push the button. It's amazing. You get in there and the steering wheel's hot. Like, my ass is hot. It's nice. Those creature comforts, man, make all the difference. I'm getting older, right? I need all that stuff now.
I know, right? It's so true. When I was a kid, I was like, no way. I don't want anything. Like I don't even care about like power windows. You know. I'll roll it up and down. I don't care. As long as it's fast and it drives, well, that's all I cared about, Dude, now you're right.
I had a 2-door Cherokee as my winter beater, and I had my CJ7. Was on a Bronco frame with a 5-liter and all that in high school, and I went into college, and I fucking went to check on my Jeep because I'm weird. I went, like, we had a garden center as I was growing up, and it was in one of my greenhouses. I'm like, I'm going to go look at my Jeep. And I had to dig snow out, open the gates, drive all the way to the fucking back. And I'm like, cool. And then I opened the door to my Cherokee. And this thing was like a $100 piece of shit at best, right? I opened it. It was a 2-door. The fucking door fell right off. Right off in the driveway. I'm like, oh, fuck. What am I going to do? I got to drive back to school like 4 hours in the cold. So I said, fuck it. I spent the whole day in the freezing cold in the greenhouse putting my summer Jeep back together. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't have any fucking HVAC in this motherfucker at all. So I went to Canadian Tire and I wired in a 12-volt mini portable heater. And I literally put it in my jacket and like, okay, I'm warm enough. And then I put it on the window. And then I'd start freezing to death because it just had a soft top and soft doors. And then I put it back in my jacket. Okay, fuck, only an hour and a half more. And then I put a header gasket on the way back to school. It was amazing. So, yeah, I understand the whole spectrum of total bullshit pain to like super comfortable.
Yeah, right.
Nice. It's terrible, dude. I'll never forget it.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's cool. I I actually, so I realized with the JL that I didn't get the fabric soft top. And I know it's not, a big deal, but I have the fabric soft top now and it is so much nicer. So I was like, shit, what the hell am I going to do? And I'm like, hey, whatever. I'll just check it out on Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace. And sure enough, talk about timing. I found a soft top, like the premium one, because there are no, like, you can't sort of order, the one that you want, and there's really no stock. Everyone seems to be buying the dual tops, and most people don't need it. So there was an older gentleman who bought it up in Sudbury, and he's like, yeah, if you want to come and get it, I don't need it. I've got a Mustang convertible for the summer. He's like, I'll give it to you for $1,000. I'm like, okay, I'm in. So I jumped in the Jeep, away I went, left at 3 o'clock, got back at 12:30.
Nice.
Got in a couple of our podcasts while we were driving. But yeah, it was it was a bit of a drive, but I scored a pretty awesome soft top for $1,000. So no,
that's easy.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Well,
bit of a drive though.
We can't even sell, like, Best Top is not doing any aftermarket production. They're only fulfilling their requirements to the OEM. So there's no tops in the whole universe, and I knew that was before. So I ordered the Gladiator with a dual top because I knew I couldn't even get one. So
wow,
that's what I got. But yeah,
that's awesome. I totally.
If anybody's looking for soft tops, or if anyone's selling soft tops, you could definitely price gouge. And if anyone's looking for soft tops, go now and look before people realize they can price gouge, because you can't buy a new Best Top product for the aftermarket right now. Like, there's no stock in anybody's warehouse anywhere, basically. You know what I mean? You might luck out, but I mean, they're not even producing stuff. So it's pretty crazy. I could have sold like 400 soft tops already this year, and I've sold like just the first few that we had in stock. So it's crazy.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, good to know. All right, good tip. Well, I guess I really did then luck out, because that's why I left. I was like, for that price, there's no way I'm sitting on that. So I had a couple webinars scheduled for the afternoon. I just hooked up my iPad on the dashboard and away I went. Took my oldest kid, and that was it. We're out. Had to fill up 4 times though, there and back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My Jeep's not awesome on gas, so, and it was like 900 kilometers, I think, all said and done when I got back. 800.
It's a regear. You missed our last episode about regear,
right? Yeah, yeah, that's right. So should we even talk about the Bronco, or are we sick of all the news? Tim, did you have you seen like tons of stuff with the Bronco?
No, I didn't fucking hear. I mean, there's a Bronco?
Yeah, right? I know, right? Did something happen with Ford this week? I don't know.
Yeah, some horse truck came out. Yeah, no, it looks pretty rad. I think they've done a good job of listening to customers and getting in touch with customers. I've got a Ford truck, like a Super Duty, love it. So I mean, I think it's good if they kind of punch Jeep in the mouth and see what Jeep's got to do to react, and hopefully it's going to push Jeep, because no one's given them a run really, and they've dominated that market space. Don't get me wrong, I'm still like a Jeep enthusiast, but competition's good for the marketplace. I hope it lights a fire under Jeep's ass. They've tried to everyone's seen it, but like they're not coming out with that Hemi. It's one of those one of those concepts you always drop. I'm like, why don't you fucking build this? There's a market for it, but we won't actually make that. And then the electric one, I couldn't give a fucking shit about it. I mean, not to say there's not a market for that down the road, but yeah, I don't care. So anyways, I hope Ford gains some serious market share with what they've done, and I hope that lights a fire under Jeep's ass and they start brawling it out, and we get some better models coming out in the future.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think competition is, free market economy, right? Like that's I've seen so many people bashing, and like it's a problem, and it's like, really, if you're a Jeep enthusiast, you're going to love this, because they're going to either have to step up or and the best thing that Ford did is they listened to customers, and they seemingly put out a pretty capable truck, right? Like it's pretty cool. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to hype it. I like it. I'm going to buy one just because, I don't know, what's another payment, right? But yeah, I think it's super cool looking. Yeah, like I had old Broncos. We've restored them, like resto mod them and stuff here over the years. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Like I said, my CJ was on a Bronco frame, a 74 Ford Bronco, and I had all Ford driveline, Dane 44 and 9 inches, and disc brakes and 5-liter full roller motors, and I put a Windsor in it, and did a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, I really enjoy the machine for sure. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. You know, it's good for aftermarket too. Like I know Ford said they're going to launch a bunch of stuff, but there'll be ways in and around those guys. Like their stuff's going to be really expensive, and you know, so there'll be different availabilities. And I think it'll give Jeep something to think about for sure. But yeah, I like it.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I agreed. I think it's it's cool. That's it. They did a good job.
Sport one. Like
yes, yeah.
No.
No one's talking about that one.
Yeah, that's terrible. They should just skip that one, man.
The renegade of the Ford family. Everyone has to have that redheaded stepchild, right? So
dude, it's terrible. And you know what's going to be funny? That one's going to sell the most.
Right? Absolutely. You're going to see that one everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
They're like, hey, I got a Bronco. And you're like, no, actually you didn't.
Right?
You missed,
it's like,
get the yellow one. You're supposed to get the yellow one.
Yeah, that's right. I also saw FCA and PSA, when they merged, they came up with a new name. Not that anyone probably cares, but what is it? Stellantis, it's called. So it won't be FCA. So, when we get recalls and what have you in the mail, it'll be from Stellantis. That's the new parent company name. So, yeah, right? It means
sounds like a erectile difficulty pill or something.
It certainly does. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I take Stellantis and I do just fine.
That's right.
Terrible.
Right? I know. Well, I think it just shows the roots, right? Because I think it's either like Latin or it's some ancient Italian or something like that. It has to do with the solar system.
Deep focus group on that one, eh?
Right? Exactly. I wonder how many millions of dollars I spent just to come up with that name.
Yep. A side effect limited to weak axles and underpowered motors.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Awesome. All right. Well, getting into it, let's talk about axles. Speaking about axles, yeah. So last week we covered, basically, what an axle is, all that fun stuff, and what we can do on the stock axles. And this week we want to talk about going beyond the stock axles. And so the first thing I think we want to talk about is the benefits of like a heavy-duty aftermarket D44 housing that takes stock internals. So I'm the first to admit that these guys are really schooling me when it comes to this. So they're going to help me through a bit of this. So Tim, why don't you walk through what that is, what that means, and help me understand exactly how that's like the mid. As Ryan put it, the mid-arm to the axle world.
So these are really cost-effective upgrades. Say you had your Jeep, you didn't truss and gusset it and do some of the other upgrades we're talking about. You went off-road and happened to bend or break your axle housing. You've got all your gears, your traction device, your axle shafts, knuckles, brakes, all those goodies. If you don't have the budget to fully walk away from those and get a whole new diff, some of these aftermarket 44 housings serve as kind of a really good middle ground because you've already got a lot of the expensive guts. So you buy new housing. These housings are much stronger than stock. They'll put bigger inner C's on them, bigger axle tubes, thicker axle tubes, bigger and stronger axle brackets. So they're a wicked upgrade that's kind of a middle step in going between your stock axles and going all that on 1 ton. So they fill a really good void in the market. I wouldn't get one just for the sake of getting one, but yeah, if you're either on a budget and that's the limit of it, or if you've trashed your stock axle housing and you want to keep going with it, they're an awesome option. So I know like Dynatrac makes one, Curry makes one, and I'll throw to Ryan because I know he's got a heavy 44 housing and axle whatnot in his JK, so he's gonna have some real hands-on experience with these.
Yeah, for sure. Like we went with the G2. Not gonna lie, we kind of assessed the market, and that was the most cost-effective one that we found, and we did a full one was already fully loaded, so ours and we kept the stock Dana 44 rear in the Jeep. So we did axle shafts, we did Tim's trusses on the rear of the JK Dana 44, and we put an ARB air locker in it and 48s. We talked about before, I personally don't like going steeper gear than that and the smaller stuff, so I kind of stopped at 48s, and then we did the full bolt-in G2 Dana 44. So the shafts are much bigger. Like Tim said, all your exteriors are bigger. Bearings are a little bigger, and then we did it with an ARB and the 48 to match the rear. So you just bolt that in, like you get that out of the crate. You got to take off. The only difference with the 44, you got to retain your outer. So if you're doing this at home, you would take out your brakes and your wheel bearings and your spindles or your knuckles, whatever you guys want to call them, and then you would transfer those over, and then the G2 Dane 44 fully loaded is ready. All you got to do is put the knuckles. The ball joints are there. They're ball joints. And you just reassemble that whole thing, and you just put the control arms in, and your track bar and your steering, and you align the vehicle. If you got adjustable arms, great, you can adjust it. But that was a good, cost-effective move. And then you can, like I said, if you're on a reasonable budget, and we've run it on sticky 40s for like 3 years, and my wife drives it pretty aggressively. Even when we do our one-on-one clinics, like she'll go and there's still different terrain there, so she'll try harder stuff, or she'll beat on it pretty good. And I've never had to do anything. We did one set of ball joints in 3 years, but we're running AEV beadlock wheels, which are heavy, and those the Trepador comps, which are heavy. So I'm overall pleased with it. You know what I mean? I would suggest that if that's a middle ground, you know what I mean? Like advantages that way. It is a little lighter, the axle itself, over a 1 ton. You don't have to buy new wheels, and if you're only going to go, like, it's a safe play for 37s, I believe, in my books, you know what I mean? And you want to stretch to 40s, and you can be pretty aggressive with it, in my opinion. And then same with the rear. I didn't do anything. I think we did an axle seal in it's 12 years. No, it's 8 years old. I did one axle seal, and, you go through brakes, but I'll do say that the little brakes get eaten up pretty quick. With the 40s, we run those comps all day long through the summer because, whatever. They check crack and stuff anyway, so you might as well I just run them. And it looks cool, it's fun, it's a little loud, and they're like the Flintstonemobile when they're cold and stuff like that. But be prepared if you do the small stuff. You're probably going to consume some brakes and some wheel bearings a little quicker than you want to. But
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, as a good sort of middle step, what we're thinking 37s, maybe pushing to 40s. Is that about right?
I'm pretty confident in saying it'll run it like I have personally, right? And it drives all summer. It even this winter is out. It kind of flip flops. Sometimes it stays indoors, sometimes it doesn't. But in the off season, it's just a regular driver, right? Goes to work, takes the kid to school, goes to the grocery store, take it out of town here and there. Not kind of normal kind of putting around. And then it does. We probably did 8 events last year with it, which is pretty reasonable amount of four-wheeling for the season, plus a couple of our own events. So let's say it does 10-12 events, and it's it's not killing it, but it's not being like putt around, and it survived the whole time. Like I said, I think we did a camp, and now we went and she tacoed a steering link. You know what I mean? And that was a brand new Moog part we even put on. So, and then the rest of the thing was fine. So, Yeah, there you go. Like a steering upgrade when you get a chance for sure is a good idea, too, if you do that axle. But the 1 tons, you got to change everything anyways. But.
Okay, cool. No, and that's a good, I think, segue. So, Tim, when would we start to consider the idea of like a 1 ton swap?
I think with a 40-inch or larger tire, or say you've done an engine swap and you got some V8 power under the hood, or if you just want the ultimate in durability and reliability. Like I know myself, when I first built a TJ, I carry stock, everything, spare axle shafts for the front, spare axle shafts for the rear, spare unit bearing. When you swap in 1 tons and you have that added reliability, I'd start leaving all that shit at home. I'd carry a basic tool bag, and truthfully, it made wheeling trips more fun. You've got less gear to pack up, less gear to unpack, less weight to tow around. I mean, Jeeps aren't known for their space to begin with. So yeah, I just like that added confidence. So I'd say, yeah, if you want to push north of a 37-inch tire and you want to be hard on it, and you want reliability, I'd be looking at swapping in some 1 ton axles.
All right, cool. And just to remind everyone, the 1 ton is was it the sort of quote unquote definition of the 1 ton?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at traditionally we'd be looking at like an 8-lug axle out of a 2500 or larger truck. So like a 3/4 1 ton truck.
You can find a 3/4 ton truck. They just call it a 1 ton, but you can do either way. Like you could do a single wheel 3500, which is a 1 ton pickup. But basically, if you found a 2500 series pickup truck in the scrapper or whatever, and you wanted to use those, like you can reference Tim, and I don't know if it says on your page, does it, like what axles you want or what your most common parts fit? Like
Yes.
that'd be something to do quickly, right? So if you were going on the TMR website and you wanted to do the swap over kit and you had a JK, like I believe it would say that, like, hey, this is like '08 and up axles, so then you go find an '08 and up F250 and then steal those axles out, and then you got a lot of work to do at home, but I mean that's definitely a way to go. But yeah, so you could look for a 3/4 ton truck, and it would give you that 1 ton axle. Yeah, just
Okay.
so clear. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. So two things. So basically, what we're saying is when we switch to one tons, we're basically ripping everything out from underneath the Jeep and replacing it with axles from a truck, for example,
Yep.
right? So a 3/4 ton or whatever the case may be. So with that being said, maybe it's a good time to talk about the product of the week then, because the product of the week this week is the TMR JK swap kit, right? Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tim, tell us about that.
Sure. So it's kind of what Ryan segued there with. We make axle trusses. So these are similar to what you would do to your stock housings. They're weld-on steel piece. We tell you what axles to choose. So we spec what Ford axle you want for the front. And then the rear, you've got the option of using a Ford or a GM axle. I can get into the details about the pluses or minuses of each later. But we spec what axle to get on our website. You go source that axle from the junkyard or buy a whole truck and rip them out. And then you basically cut all the factory mounting points and brackets off those truck axles, and you weld our truss on. Once our truss is welded on, you've basically built yourself your own bolt-in crate axle that you can slide under the Jeep, and it's going to line up with your stock control arms, track bar, coil buckets, you name it. Basically, once you build these, at that point, it's kind of a weekend swap to rip your old axles out and put these new ones in place. So we just try and make it easy for you, take all the guesswork out of it. So you can just kind of build them up step by step. And then it's a much faster process when it goes to putting them under your Jeep. It's just less customization needs to be done on your end.
What are you recommending they do with the drive shafts, Tim?
Drive shafts I would do last. So I would get the axles in. Some people want to do some stretching front or rear. So that's something to nail. But truthfully, after the axles are in place, I'd give a call to Tom Woods. I've always had awesome luck with them. Or
Yeah.
Adams coming on hard. They're out there. I'd call a reputable drive shaft builder. You supply them with basically a length and U-joint size, which I can help guide you with if you got any questions, or they can. And you just literally order up. We'll call it a crate drive shaft at that point. Drive shaft's going to go up, bolt it in, and now you got your power transmission. You're running.
So the only thing they're going to want to do is they're going to want to change those yokes out probably, or potentially, right?
Yeah,
There's a-
exactly. Exactly, which would be the same if we threw like a 4-inch lift in a newer Jeep anyways and went with an aftermarket drive shaft. So very similar to what we would be doing there.
So the thing to watch with that at home is just pinion preload on when you change that yoke out. So maybe you want to get some experience to change that yoke out for you. That'd be the only thing that I would suggest above and beyond, when you start putting the shafts in.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's what you have that in the JK, yeah?
Myself, yeah. So
Yeah.
I used like the F250 or 350 axle we spec. So it's basically a 2005 to current front end. So it's a Dana 60 in the front. And then the rear, we use a GM 14 bolt from a 99 to 06 single wood GM truck. And all these details are on our website, like I said, so you can make sure you get the right stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm running, and it rolls a 42 every day. And,
It's awesome. It looks
it
great
holds up
too.
I will say one thing. Follow like what we recommend for axles, because I get lots of people call me. They're like, hey, my friend gave me a wicked deal on these AAM axles out of his Dodge, or I got an old Ford King axle. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with those axles, but you got to start from scratch. You got to basically build your own trusses and do that. What we make supports a very specific axle because we want to make your life easy. So don't call me and say, hey, do you make a truss for this? No, there's a reason we don't. Those Ford axles are driver's side drop, they're high pinion, they got the best aftermarket support. There's a reason we recommend the axles we do. So if you want life to be easy, stick within those guidelines we set out for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, no, that's amazing. Good. So we'll put
they're
a
out
link
there
down below.
too, right? Like they're out there. So it's not like you got to go find unicorns. Like there's millions of these trucks. So just, I mean, like you said, just do it on paper first. And if you have any questions, you know what I mean? Email in. You can email us right on the show, or you can email Tim, or you can email us too. Like we've done those types of jobs quite a bit, and either way. So easy to easy to do it wrong on paper, you know what I mean, and just fix it versus, you know, buying the wrong thing or getting excited, you know what I mean? Because don't think it's the last one. There's fucking shit everywhere.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. So we'll link that in the show notes below, and of course, if anyone has any questions, we'll also have the text number that you can text in or send us an email. So that is amazing. Very good. So then I guess our next step would be, let's talk about a junkyard swap. What is it, and what does that look like? Tim, do you want to handle this one?
Sure. So that's exactly what we're talking about. So now you've determined what axles you're going to use. You followed my guideline or the guideline of another manufacturer. So you could call local junkyard and say, I need these 2 axles. You can find someone selling a whole truck and maybe scavenge those axles yourself. You can hop on Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, Craigslist, you name it. But basically, you've got to find yourself those front and rear axles. Those are your junkyard axles that you're going to use for the swap. Once you have them, truthfully, the shit job begins, because cutting all those brackets off the stock axles, it sucks. There's no two ways about it. The benefit to it is those housings are bigger and stronger than what a lot of the aftermarket stuff's doing. If you look at the Dana axle that's under an F250 that I want you to use versus what Dana offers as their bolt-in crate 60, big time difference when you start looking at the knuckles and C's and stuff. So if you go the junkyard route, in my opinion, you're going to end up with something stronger, but you are going to put in some serious hours with a grinder, with a plasma cutter, with a torch, and picking black boogers out of your nose, because you're gonna spray a lot of abrasive dust to clean all the stuff off. So
my nose just got itchy just thinking about it.
So get your COVID mask on before you start, and you'll be good. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's for the faint of heart. It's for people that have fabrication skills or want to learn and have obviously a space to do that. I mean, if you live in a neighborhood, your neighbor might not want you grinding next to his nice car and lacing it with abrasives. So realistically, it's not for everyone, but if you've got those skills and abilities and want to build something yourself, you'd rather put in some time and save some money on the backside, then yeah, the junkyard swap is exactly up your alley and what you want.
Okay, cool.
And then you're going to want to figure out traction, right? So you're really just using the housing. You probably get away with using the axle shafts, right? If you wanted to. You didn't want to go and buy even more expensive parts, but chances are you're going to need a ring and pinion unless you're going with a smaller tire. Like if you ended up finding some of the 410s and you're doing that, like you're kind of hit and miss on 37s with 410s and adding all that weight, right? So you're going to want to gear it and you're going to want to put some kind of traction to it. You know what I mean? That being said, you could do that in steps if it was a financial challenge. You could still put the axle together and put it underneath the Jeep and all that fun stuff and drive it or have it ready and then, you know, just do the internals after. So there's that too. But yeah, just keep in mind you're going to be buying, you know, perfect world gears, ring and pinion install kits, you know, and then whenever I get anything from a junkyard or something like that, like I always do all the consumables, right? Like I'll change all the seals, I'll change all the axle bearings and, you know, those upfront unit bearings, like, I mean, if I was doing something cool for me, I would put new ones on, even if they were still okay. Like, I would just change it, and then I just write in a little book. Like, we have service manuals for all our company vehicles, and I'm pretty anal, like, so everything is documented for me. Like, it might be a little over-the-top type A for someone else, but just nice to know that you bought it at this date, your Jeep had this many kilometers on it, you put it in, and here's all my stuff. I did all these new things, and it's just kind of like a nice thing to know. Not like everyone's going to do that, but I do that. But I also, like, arrange my controllers straight and equally spaced on my, you know, coffee table too. So
nice. Okay, cool. No, that's good. And that's what I was going to say is what are some of the like downsides of going with the junkyard, you know, as opposed to just I assume the next step would be just going and purchasing it, right?
I would say really the downside, in my opinion, it would be the work. If you didn't want to do it or love to do it or didn't have the time, that's kind of where you're going to be downfall, is just the amount of work. And maybe you're not like a skilled welder or a confident welder, like, you know, that peace of mind's not there. Like that'd be where that's the most of it, in my opinion. It's just a lot of time and effort, and everything takes longer than you think and takes longer to do it the right way. But other than that, and you know, some of those, if you're kind of like a photo guy, you know what I mean? Like some of those new fancy like crate axles look super cool, and you're gonna have a giant piece of metal under the Jeep that's from the scrapyard that you can paint up and look pretty cool. And they do look sick. But some of those crazy like weird pinion, like different cast housings and all that stuff is pretty. So it's either you want it prettier or you don't have time to do all the work, or it's just out of your skill set.
Okay, cool. And that's what I was going to say. So for next steps then, Tim, if it is outside of your skill set, then what are we looking at? Like, what's the best way to go about upgrading?
So at that point, you'd be looking at purchasing like quote unquote a crate axle, and truthfully, it's exactly what it sounds. These guys will show up in a crate, fully dressed, and ready to bolt into your Jeep. So like popular manufacturers for that, Ryan mentioned G2 earlier. Courier Enterprise is a massive player. I've sold a number of their crate axles. They're gorgeous, and Dynatrack's right up there as well. They build some badass stuff. So with these axles, you're paying a premium up front because they're using all new parts. So they have a new center section cast. They put new tubes in it, new knuckles, bearings, everything. Like Ryan says, you get to choose the traction device you get. So you get to slam an ARB in there if you want, or electronic locker. Or you get to choose your ring and pinion ratio. So you get to make all those choices up front, and that thing just comes ready for you. Literally pull it out of the crate, pull your old axle out, disconnect your control arms and all the linkages, and slide the new one under it. It's also painted, so you pay up front. Obviously, it's let's call it a financial penalty over a junkyard axle, but you make that up in time. You could do a junkyard swap in a weekend. You could go to a retailer like Off-Road Addiction, and they order the right one for you by asking you those questions, what you need for gearing, etc. Because like we discussed earlier, not everyone knows what they need, and there's nothing wrong with that. So if you're not the hands-on type and you don't want to cut, grind, weld, and fabricate, but you've got the budget for it, then yeah, crate axle is an awesome option because you're going to get that strength upgrade, same like you would, better in some instances than the junkyard stuff. But it's just a much easier and smoother process. It's going to come together way quicker if you've got the financial means to do that.
Okay, awesome. Really cool. And Ryan, I was going to ask you, do you have, I mean, you've dealt with this a number of times. Do you have like a good, better, best solution for that? Or is it just typically based on the requirements of each individual owner?
They're reasonably equal. You know, you can read reviews and different things, but I've never had one where it's like, oh, that was a terrible, like, crate axle to buy. You know what I mean? They're all pretty decent, you know, and I've never had anything bust on any customers that way. You can almost pick for looks because most people are going to use like Timken bearings. Most people are going to use a reasonable ring gear, the traction device like ARB most of the time, or like aux locker. You know, they all have their different sets, so they're all using premium components internally too, right? So that's it. And then the only thing you got to add is when you go to that stop, you're going to need some steering too, right? So your OE steering is not going to cut it. So you're going to have to add that in. And if you're running big used tires, you want to take that consideration of if you're going to add like full hydro or like hydro assist, you're not really going to enjoy running full hydro as a driver, like a daily driver. You're probably better off with an assist. You get some bit of road feedback. You know what I mean? It kind of is like driving a forklift. You know what I mean? It's amazing, but you just don't get any like performance feedback on the road, right? So if it's one of those types of vehicles, I'd recommend just an assist personally. But yeah, so that's just another thing you're gonna have to budget, you know, a few more $1,000s for, to be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
When I did the G2 swap, like I said, I could leave the OE steering in, right? So that was it. But like I said, it's stronger than the OE, but not as strong as the 1-ton. So, you know, you got to kind of just figure out what makes sense for you. Or I get help, like, figuring it out. Like, you know what I mean? Which is like, we can help you with that. Kind of just assess your needs. And then you got to draw that line between, like, the needs and the budget. You know what I mean? Sure. You know, wants. You know what I mean? So sometimes they very seldom, like, align. You know what I mean?
Yes,
you know,
very so.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. So you got to figure it out.
Okay, cool. I know that's actually, I was going to ask if there was anything that we needed to consider in terms of other costs come down the road, right? So if we do this upgrade, you know, do we have to consider, you know, is it going to wear more on different products or different parts or what have you, Tim?
Yeah. Wicked question. So we've addressed in previous episodes, but you're going to need new wheels. I mean, we're moving from 5-lug to 8-lug, so you're going to need new wheels. Ryan mentioned the steering earlier. Your OEM steering linkages are not going to work, so you're going to need an upgraded steering solution. Drive shafts, Ryan also covered that. Once you have the 1-tons under there, though, everything's going to last longer. We're on a bigger ball joint, a bigger unit bearing, a bigger rear axle bearing, bigger ring and pinion, and bigger brakes. So you're going to see all those other wear items will last you longer than if you were pushing the bigger tire on your stock axles. So that's one benefit. Once you have that stuff under there, the durability and longevity of those parts will go much further. Keep in mind, they are more expensive to replace. A unit bearing for an F-250 is more money than a unit bearing for a Jeep. But if you worked it out to cost versus mile, I guarantee you that 1-ton stuff is getting you better value because it's better suited to run that tire. So yeah, even if you do the crate axle route, it's not just a matter of buy these crate axles and I'm done. You still are drive shafts, wheels, steering, and possibly some other stuff. So yeah, keep all that in mind. This is a big snowball, and it starts running downhill fast and gathering momentum and gathering up other parts. Like Ryan said, if we're running a big tire, we probably want hydraulic assist on there. So now we're new steering box, assist cylinder, etc. So definitely lean on a friend who's done it for advice, or shop. Call a good retailer like Ryan at Upward Addiction. Call us. We sell the builder parts and do this stuff ourselves, so we know really what you need to accomplish that. The worst thing for me is people say, like, my max budget, say, is 10 grand. They spend the 10, but that's not everything they need. They really need another 5 to finish this thing off. I feel terrible for people like that. So really get all those answers up front and figure out if it is within your financial means to pull this off.
All right, cool. And Ryan, is that sort of what you do if someone walks into the shop? They, they'll say, "Here's my budget, 10 grand." I assume being obviously this is what we talked about earlier about being a reputable place who, considers the overall customer experience. That's something that people need to keep in mind, right? If they have a $10,000 budget, you need to back that up a little bit and say, okay, well, it probably makes more sense to spend $7,000, for example, on the swap itself, because you're going to need another 3 in added component.
Yeah, well, basically, I kind of sort out, even before the money's on the table that way, I kind of sort out what you want. Like, let's go full on dream. Like, what are we looking here, right? And then you can just spew a bunch of stuff, and it could be, like, totally, like, okay, that totally makes sense. Or, like, it's a bit, internet, Instagram-y kind of promoted. And then I can just, we can bring it back down and say, okay, cool, that sounds fantastic, but what are you doing with this thing, Or what are your aspirations, those types of things. And then we can build the truck on your expectations. And then once we get there, on paper, obviously, then we go, okay, cool. So this is what it costs to get you your expectations of a Jeep with all the stuff you need. And we've kind of walked through what you want. And then from there, you're going to go, okay, well, that's cheaper than I thought, which doesn't happen that much. And then, you know what I mean? Are you going to go, okay, I can do that, or that makes sense, or, okay, Jesus, you know what? That's way more money than I thought. What else can we do? And then we adjust the plan from there, right? So when we have stuff like that, even like just regular stuff, we have like really great conversations with our clients, and all my team's really good at it. Like, I'm going to be the one that's a little more versed in this stuff than them on the floor usually, right? And then that's fine. They'll still take all the information, and then I'll meet with my team, and I'll go over the stuff that, that I want them to address, or even if I'm on site here, I'll go down and chat it out, and make sure everybody's on the same page. But that's kind of what we do, right? And then maybe we got to scale back, or maybe, I only want to run a 37, or maybe 40s won't fit in my garage. So yeah, you're right. Like, there's those things we can weed through. Or like, oh, you know what? I'm only really going to do 101 trails, but someone said 110s were key. I just want to go camping with my family and maybe hit a couple things. Like, okay, dude, well, maybe we just do the Dana 44 swap, kind of like, our green Jeep. And I show them, like, hey, look, this is what it looks like. This is what it's there. Like, I love owning all these vehicles and all that stuff, but they do have a purpose, right? Just like Tim loves that stuff. It's awesome. It's what we do. It's our passion. It's what we think about. But it's still a nice tool. It's nice if someone be able to come and see some stuff. That's why, like, out on the retail forum, we got a lot of stuff on the floor. Because, looking on the internet's one thing, but you can come see, touch, and feel it, and hold your hand and talk about it, or see it on a complete vehicle. Like, we find that it's powerful, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so a question just popped in my head. Tim, where would you put this in terms of order of upgrades to the Jeep? So, we get a Jeep, someone wants to do like an LS swap, or, what have you, really build a badass machine. Where is this in like the order of upgrades? Is this like one of the first things you do? Do you want to do the engine swap first? Where does this pop in?
I truthfully wouldn't do the engine swap without the axles. To me, they kind of come together. If you want to try and feed 500 horsepower to a stock axle and enjoyably feed 500 horsepower to a stock axle, and fucking put fucking rugged. Like, that's why you hope we did a V8 swap. I would do the axles first. You're gonna get, because you can do the axle swap and still get years out of that, and that enjoyment of that bigger tire, that badass looking Jeep, and the trail capabilities. And then maybe you want to circle back and do that LS swap afterwards. So I think most people, when you start out, you want cosmetically the look of a Jeep. So like lift wheels, tires, all stuff we've kind of covered off after, but then you realize sometimes to get that bigger tire, I'll fuck, like I gotta put in some work underneath the Jeep, and like it's when we start talking axles, and you start rolling in transfer cases, you name it, but it gets into that territory of like I joke with my friends because they don't really understand what I do. I just drive home in a nice Jeep. They don't understand what we do with them off road or that, and I'm like, honestly, I'm like, if you had a stock Jeep, I'm like, I could spend 40 fucking grand on it under it, and literally you wouldn't know if I didn't tell you. Cosmetically, it doesn't look a whole lot different. So that's crazy things about this sport. But if you're really into the stuff and know it and know you have the right gear to back it up, you just have more fun knowing you have durable parts that can withstand the rigors you're going to put your machine through.
All right, right on. Yeah, right.
That is another. Like the transfer case is the other really reasonably expensive piece of the puzzle too when you get to it, right? So yeah, you do all that work and you're still running a stock case, which I'm guilty of that too in the green Jeep. I still got a stock Sahara case on there, right? So just the crawl ratio is not there is where it should be, you know what I mean? You do make it up a little bit with the ratios in the axles, but you know, on the Jeep from like Sahara to converting it to make it a little more stout, kind of what we did. It's like a little bit better than a Rubicon. The only thing we're missing on that particular Jeep is that 4-to-1 case, but it's still aluminum case with, you know, chain drive, all that fun stuff. So there's another little weak point when you start really flogging it, right? And you upgrade shafts, so you're able to send more, you know, you're just sending more power out, and you're just messing with a whole bunch of stuff, right? So like a weak link in that Jeep for us would be the transfer case would kind of be the next one, right? So yeah, there's another piece that's another $4,000 to $6,000 that's stuck up there you don't see.
Right? Yeah.
That's then awesome. You want shifters for it, and it depends what you do. If you do cable or air, and you know, it's a snowball, like Tim said. It's monsters, and yeah, you can put 2 or 3 Jeeps side by side and line them up, and you'd be like, that Jeep's $40,000, that Jeep's $160,000, that Jeep's $200,000. And you'd be like, oh, fuck, wow. You know what I mean? Like, really, until you start poking around, you never really know.
Nice. Right on. Actually, it's funny you mentioned the with the stock axles and the LS. There's a internet video, if I can find it. I think it's this, he's a YouTube, you know, quote-unquote influencer. So they probably, you know, make pretty decent money. And he bought a Jeep, did a Hemi swap, and he had it for 4 minutes, I think he said, and he blew the axle. He couldn't even drive it home. He literally was just doing burnouts in the driveway, in the parking lot, and he's done. And you know, I'm sure he made his money back just in so many people watching this video, right? Just watching the fail video. Like, I think it was a Gladiator, actually. But yeah, I'll try and find it and link it down. Did you see that? Yeah.
I think I.
Yeah. Right on. Cool. All right. Awesome. So, was there anything that we missed covering the axle upgrades of the one ton?
I think that it's a deep pool to jump in. Like we said, wheels, tires, steering, drive shafts. It's not just a matter of you pop on a CurryEnterprises.com and you see the price of the crate disc and you're like, okay, I can tackle that. Or you go on Dynatrack and you're like, okay, I can tackle that. And you visit TMR Customs and you're like, okay, those swap trusses are this. I can find used axles for this. You really got to talk to someone that's done it. Like I said, a shop, brand, whatever. And like Ryan said, map all this out on paper because it's a deep pool to jump into, and it's advanced upgrades. I mean, at this point, you're not taking your Jeep to the dealership when a wheel bearing goes out of it. You're either doing it or you're taking it to a reputable shop that's an expert on that. So you've gone pretty far in terms of the customization of the Jeep. So make sure it's one you're going to, in my opinion, hold on to. I wouldn't want to see you do this work and you have to sell the thing 3 years later. I mean, you're gonna take a fucking bad bath at that point. It's going to be ugly. So yeah, I would just make sure it's your Jeep. You're going to want to have this thing for a period of time to really get the enjoyment out of all that money and work you're about to put into it.
Nice. Okay. And Ryan, do we, in this, again, just popped in my head, is this something you want to do typically with a new Jeep, or is this like you enjoy the Jeep for a few years and you're ready to kind of do something crazy with it? You go and do it then, or does it really depend on what you really want your outcome is? Really,
it's all individual, man.
Yeah,
like there's no, there's no set guidelines. You know what I mean? So if you bought a new Jeep and you just want to make it insane right out of the box, let's do that. You know what I mean? Like, no problem. If you have an old TJ and the frame's good and you like the body and you just like having a TJ and you're going to keep it, do it. You know what I mean? Like, do the whole thing. Or you got a YJ, you want to like coil over and solid axles, or not solid axle, but, you know, get rid of the leaf springs and, you know, do 1 tons on it. Yeah, do whatever you want. Or even if it's a CJ, like, I wouldn't use the CJ frame, the little taco frames, you know, but that'd be another story. But yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever you want. You know what I mean? That'd be it. And it's all going to cost you. You know what I mean? Just depends on what your upfront costs are. You know what I mean? Are you buying a $5,000 or $10,000 TJ and putting 30 to 40,000 in it, or are you buying a $60,000 brand new Jeep and putting 30 or $40,000 in it? It's kind of up to you. You
Nice.
know?
All right, cool. I will say that's the cool thing about the Jeep community. See all these, people sort of rag on each other or whatever, but at the end of the day, do your thing, right? Do you. That's the beautiful
Yeah.
thing about Jeeps. Like, they're sort of individual, right? Unique,
Yeah.
just like people. So no, I agree. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. You enjoy it. Enjoy what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like we can bust each other's balls here and there for fun, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I never make fun of anybody. If that's what they like, as long as it's done right or they got the right information. Like, I hate telling people they got the wrong information. I try not to. I don't like making people feel like they're stupid because, like, if I went out to build a house, like, I'd probably do some mistakes. I don't build houses, right? So, and people are like, oh, you can't do that, you idiot. Like, I try not to do that kind of stuff, but yeah, if it's done nice and clean and that's what you like, puts a smile on your face and it's safe, perfect. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I don't want a pink Jeep, like, whatever, but it still could be really cool. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
whatever, man, whatever works. Like, yeah, there's too many heroes out on the internet just smoking people, and most of those dudes are driving like 1989 Ford Tauruses with rust out quarter panels or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's you. Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
brutal.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I hear you. It's yeah. Yeah, so many positive people, but I think the negative people are just, they have the voices, right? Like, they'll go out and, like, they got nothing better to do, I think. So,
Yeah, totally. So yeah, you just gotta dust those people off. And be like, yeah, sure, cool. Don't let it bother you. But yeah, yeah. And like I said, we're all here to help. And, we can help you. Like, there's no cost for us to, do this podcast that way or throw some information directly your way. Like, I don't have a problem with like answering a couple like specific questions. Just to, point you in the right direction, for sure.
awesome. Okay, cool. All right, then. Well, then, with that being said, is anything, I don't know, Tim, you had your race last weekend. We didn't even touch on that. How did it go?
Oh, it was awesome. So we ran a 2-hour wheel-to-wheel endurance race. So, like, in our unlimited class, we have 13 trucks out there. So pushing for 2 hours. I mean, the attrition rate was over half the field broke down, and it was pretty wild. I've never done a race like that. It was in Minden, Ontario, at an off-road park called Ray's Place, and yeah, it was sick. It was a lot of fun. Can't wait to get out and do it again. We've got another race coming up in about a month.
Nice. So, Ryan, anything planned? I know another thing that we didn't touch on, your gold anodized long arm kit.
Yeah.
On your JL looks sick. It is so nice.
Thank
I
turned over.
yeah.
turned out really-
I was gonna say, are they ready for production?
It's kind of like our SEMA truck, but I've had a lot of people south of us like reach out and want it as a kit. So, like, we'll probably put it in a production kit. We just got to basically we got to draw up some of the mounts and stuff because we kind of made them almost like a one-off.
Okay.
Just clean that up a little bit, and but the arms are good. They're all modeled and everything, so that's easy. End links are done and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it drives super smooth. I took it up like the main highway yesterday, and it's on those 41.5s, and just drives awesome.
That's
And,
great.
yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah,
Cool.
I can't wait to give it a try out on the trail. So hopefully next month we'll go and take it for a rip. Just
Nice.
see how it works. Try not to scratch those wheels. I don't know. See
Yeah. Right on. Exactly. All right, cool. Well, in the meantime, if anyone has any questions that they need answered in particular about, 1-ton swaps or axles, and to be honest, anything really, feel free, join our text community. The number is 1-716-209-3576. It's a little bit of a community where, it's a little bit more one-to-one, a little bit more personal than being on Instagram or Facebook or what have you. So we do get your texts and we will respond. There are a number of people on it, so we can't maybe respond to everyone's, but we will do our best. But we also have some added perks and what have you there as well. So feel free to join that. Again, 1-716-209-3576. We'll put that number down in the notes. Or feel free to reach out to podcast@gbeef.com. And of course, if you want to find Ryan or Tim on the interwebs, or myself for that matter, we will link that up below. But yeah, again, guys, thank you very much for being here. I know I learned a lot because, like I said, going into it, I didn't know much. So I really appreciate your knowledge as always. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.